Hello everyone, we can slowly start off the session. Today we will talk about the Modular Flutter app architecture. I'm not going to change the world for you. I will show you actually some questions that I asked before and got the answers. I built a really basic app to just show you how it can work for you. And at the end of the day, the idea is to teach you about modular app architecture, why did it came out, why we're using it, and most importantly, should you use it or not? And we will try to answer these questions. Before I go forward, I'm Salih. I work as a senior developer advocate with AWS. So in case you don't know what senior developer advocate is, basically what I try to do is I try to teach the mobile application developers how to use AWS and basically build apps with it and how they can make the most out of the cloud environment. But today, the talk will not have anything about AWS Amplify except my t-shirt underneath. So I promise you that you will not see any AWS signs. All right, so disclaimer before we move forward, all of the following are my opinions and from my experiences. All the decisions that we have made in the past happened because of the circumstances that we had back in the days. So in case you have something like, hey, okay, but this doesn't make sense, that is totally normal because back in the day it made sense to us. I don't know if it is now. So I mentioned in the title, we will answer 3 questions: what, why, and how. What will be the part about what is the common architecture patterns that we basically use with Flutter, and at the same time, how we can move our story into the modular architecture, modular app architecture when we move forward. And why is the part that we will discuss about why did we move forward with this decision. And lastly, we will see how, then I will try to, I asked a few developer friends of mine about some, what would you ask me if you were listening to this talk? And they have asked me 5 questions and I will answer those 5 questions to you. Obviously, this doesn't mean you will not ask questions. I will hear your questions as well. So all of you are most likely, all of you are Flutter developers, right? Do we have anyone here by accident? Maybe Android developer, iOS developer, React Native developer? Yeah, good. Mainly, the session is not about it actually. We will just try to make you use Flutter more and more. So we will see how it is. So regardless of where you which app that you build and so on, when you have a new app, if you work with a client and so on, there are 4 things that you always discuss. First thing is the architecture, right? People sit down into a room, they are okay, what are we going to use as folder structure? Is it going to be feature first or layer first, or with the state management? It is the boogeyman right now for the, not right now, I've been doing Flutter apps since 2017, and since 7 years, nothing has changed. The names changed. Back then we were discussing about if Redux was bad or scope model was bad. Apparently we don't use them anymore. So apparently back then they were good, now they're bad. Now we say river pod and so on. I don't know what will happen in 5 years, and yeah, no one does. Then we discuss about the routing options, right? Everyone loves the Go router now, but it wasn't the only option. You could have done navigation 2.0 by yourself. For example, another GD Chaghtay, he has amazing resources about this. You could use libraries like AutoRouter, Route Master, and so on as well. So there are more decisions to make. Why am I talking about this? When you go to the app architecture perspective, for example, feature first or layer first, whatever you pick, as you move forward with your application, this will get more crowded, and you need to make a decision. You need to make a decision about how to build tests for this one, how to make decisions about which page or which class lands into a certain folder, and how you can actually manage everything together when it comes to adding a new feature on top of it. And also the architecture patterns, right? Let's see some hands. How many of you are using MVVM kind of approach with your apps? Yeah, a lot of folks. How many of you are going with DDD? Maybe you've seen Razor coders YouTube videos. Let's see some hands. Not so much. And there's also the bad guy, MVC. How many of you have tried MVC? Yeah. Good, good. I mean, it's nice. And also the I think the biggest mistake, like a misunderstood approach, is the clean architecture. Everyone has their way of doing clean. Do you think that you did clean? If you believe that, raise your hand. Yeah, you know, most likely, like myself, you're wrong. Someone else will come and see the code and they will say, no, that's not right. But like we make a decision at the end and we follow it, right? So with the like architecture patterns, we decide on what to go with. Then we have other things as well. Like there's like I work with the agencies and there were a lot of people who were using the architecture templates from the GitHub as an open source project. Like there are libraries like React or Rearch, whatever you want to call it, that you can build up your application on top of it. Like it basically you can use anything that you want, but the decisions are putting you in a direction that you need to have something that can help you achieve an app structure, that can be maintainable, testable, and easily scalable. So as you move forward, you have one of these famous growing code base problem. Have you heard of this before? Raise hands. If you heard, then you also have suffered about this one. What this means is basically when your project gets bigger and when your team gets bigger, then it turns out that maintaining, managing, and everything gets really hard. People mix up their responsibilities. Everyone wants to do everything. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of duplicate work going on. There's a lot of mistakes going on, many failing tests. I'm sure all of you had situations that, yeah, this test is broken, so let me remove the test instead of fixing the actual problem. So that is why the growing code base problem is actually bringing us to another approach. Because once you have a bigger team and bigger goal and bigger scale, you need to think of other scenarios that you can move forward with. And this is from the Android one, and Android documentation. This is one of the most simplest approaches that you can think of when we think about modular architecture. What modular architecture is, basically when you have a large application, you need to build a way to pull them into smaller pieces of applications that they can be independent. And when they're independent, they can be manageable by itself. And thanks to this, you will have a higher chance of building all of these in a separate and more parallel way. So what do I mean by this? Let's think of a really, really simple example, right? Like this is our app. And in our app, we have feature A, feature B, and feature C. You can think it as users, like posts or comments, which I will be showing you in a second. And the feature A, B, C, whatever you have, all of these are models, meaning that these can have their environments and it can be reusable in any other part of the app. Why is it important? Because in the case of you don't need a feature, the dependencies that it might have to the others will be still in place, like this one. So this way, you will not be losing any data or you will not be losing any information along the way. The features, the models that you have, they are the libraries. They are basic libraries that you will be building. They have their own pub specs. They have their own structures. It can be related to the platform as well as it can be independent, like you would have with plugin and packages. So at the end of the day, what you have in Flutter applications as models is actually a set of libraries that you host locally. So let's see the sample app. For the sample app, I built a really basic example, which I called Modular app. Can everyone see it, especially the folks in the back? If you can see it, sounds good, perfect. Also in the front, it's like, I'm neglecting you, I care about the people in the back. If you don't see it, just raise your hand, please, I can make it bigger. Anyway, so what I have here is a really super basic application. Let me show you that. This is an application that is bringing out some mock data. And this mock data, when I click on it, it is also bringing out some details about it. These are called posts, and these posts have some comments. As you can see from the white screen in the beginning, I'm not loading everything at once. I'm doing operations separately. Let's see how I do this. So this might be small. If you don't see it, I can change my ID. Can everyone see this? Data A, data B, data C thing? Okay, now, so you know what? Let me open the Visual Studio Code and zoom into half 3. Yeah, 3 is good. Is it better? Perfect, perfect. Okay, so back to the topic. So we have here, like what we have here is data A, data B, data C, feature A, and feature B. Why did I pick these names? I wanted to make it as vague as possible. The reason that I wanted to make it as vague as possible, you can imagine it in any way that you want. In data A, I have the user information. I have my data classes for the geo, their address, the company, the user, whatever it is. This information, I will be getting them from this JSON placeholder website. I didn't know it existed until like a week ago. If you don't know it, this is perfect for testing out things, just to keep in mind. It brings out information about like anything, and the information has a relationship as well with the simple endpoints that you might have. So what I show in the application here is I got in this JSON file and first created my model. Then the second thing that I did is in this new library that I have, which is called data A, I created something called user service. User service has multiple functions like fetch user, which fetches all of the users that I have, or I can get a user by ID in case I need one user. These are quite straightforward, quite basic things that you would normally do. One important point to mention here is this data A module itself. It is independent from anything else in the app. Why is it important? Because, for example, when I want to write tests, which I did here, I will be just focusing on the functions that I have on the data A here. And if I want to add more features to it about users, it will be encapsulated in its own way. It will be separated by the rest of the app. So whenever someone is working on this, they can build up their features, they can create their tests, see everything is working, and not break anything on any other part of the app. So this turns out to be our safety net at the end. So in here, what we have is we are calling this and so on. This is one thing. We are also defining this as a library, or you can export this class as well to be used as a library, whatever makes you happy. What I have is I also have data B, which is the posts that I have, and data C, which is the comment section of it. But how do I use these libraries? I said there are sections that might be reusable, which is something that we would be doing quite often with the modular app architectures. How do we use those? We will use it exactly like you would use a library locally. You would have a path reference to it and the name of the library that you would define, and you will put it to your pubspec file. And once you put it to your pubspec file and do the pub-get, you will have the libraries to be used. And how to use them? You can bring in the services, and you can also call these services from this point onwards. One big advantage of it is whatever you have on the library level in each module, you can export or you can expose as much as you want. So you don't need to expose everything that you have internally. All the business logic that you have can stay inside. You can use the like underscore, meaning that you will have a private section or function, whatever you have, or you can keep everything in SRC and just define the files that you would like to export. So when you have the services running for you, when you have the usernames and everything running here, you can see that I'm fetching this post, but the post doesn't have a reference to my username. Normally, if I was building my backend, I would just build it on the backend that it would return the data that I have. But what if I don't have that? How do I do it? For the second call, I can still call the service and get the information that I need. And one big hint or tip that I want to give here is whenever you work with the modules, always work with the DTOs that you would create and pass those information between the modules. Do not try to bring in irrelevant information to the places that they have no use of. So what we have here is we are bringing this information, but what we expose is the post that we have that is only relevant to the app. So that's why when I run the application, not here, but here, you can see that we have the title of our post, we have the details of it, and whoever has created that post as well. So once you post this and return it, that's it. This is the first feature. I will show you how to use the feature as well. It's not rocket science. It's more or less the same logic. But one thing that I want to emphasize here is in the feature A, and if I go to my pubspec.yaml file, you can see that I have the data in data B, meaning that I have the users and the post information here. And in the feature B, in the second page, I'm showing the comments and also the post information about it. So what I have here is data B and data C, meaning that I have the posts and comments. So you can see that I'm using the same business logic that I have created for posts in multiple features. And this will prevent us to do duplicate work. But I will also show you in a second that you need to be still careful when the team gets bigger. If you don't have the set of rules, you will have hard time to manage these and have duplicate work again. Okay, so like we have the feature A and feature B, and if I go to my application, for example, for the feature B, for the post and comment, what I have is I will just create my feature B object because I brought it in my library as part of the library structure. One thing to mention here, you might be asking, what's going on? Like I'm bringing things left and right. Doesn't it going to bloat the application with, I don't know, like higher APK size or like what was it? Yeah, the Apple thing, you know. At the end of the day, it's not going to happen. Thanks to the tree shaking, it is aware that whatever you are bringing, if it's not used, it is going to be removed. But of course, be a good citizen. Do know what you're doing before just pulling everything in. Anyway, so we have the feature A and feature B here, and we are pulling these in. And once we pull these in, what we will do is exactly like we would normally do with the feature calls, like we are creating the object and calling, for example, bringing the post with titles through the feature and through our data layer. And once it is loaded, we can see this information here. But there's also another thing. There is one thing that I really liked in Android environment, which is still there, but for iOS, unfortunately, it's not there. Flutter also gives you a similar service that you can actually, once you have more modules than you need, you can bring in. Should I dance? Or, well, like, why do we have the music? Okay, I will tell you a really quick story. I was in Japan like a week ago, and when the conferences are over, they're starting the music. They have this goodbye music, so maybe they're telling me to cut it off, you know? Okay. If it doesn't go, I will dance and we will continue. So one thing that I really liked about Android was you could have multiple modules and you could define your greater modules in a way that according to the region, according to the app structure that you decide, you can create an app that is only bringing in the modules that you need, which is really cool because there are many apps out there that needs to rely on the local government things and so on and so forth. So that is why it was really important to have this feature. And I did some digging, I did some research, and I realized that there's something called deferred components. How many of you have heard of it before? Nice. So even this means that if you didn't learn anything so far, I think this is a nice thing to learn. Deferred components are working for Android and web. What it does is it is bringing out the libraries that you have only when you use them if you define them with a deferred keyword. What do I mean by this? Imagine that I have this feature A Dart library, okay? And you don't need to do anything on the library side. You can say that, okay, this library is there, I created this for myself, and what I would like is, I would like to defer this as feature A, like we are giving it a namespace actually. So once we give that, what we are going to be doing is, before we use it, before we call anything about it, we will load the library. This will help us to prevent anything to be happening or like pulling in any non-essential libraries into our code base. And once you load the library, successfully of course, if your system fails, then there's another problem. But if everything is all right, then you can create the object out of it and actually use it as well. What it helps with is with web and Android, whenever you use this one, if you are not, I'm really distracted with the music. It's nice. When you're not using any of these, it's like the late keyword. It will be only part of your system when you use it. But with the late, obviously, it is already there. It is initialized when you use it. But in this case, this will download the library into your application if it is needed. Exactly. I hope so. Let me check. No. I wish it was, I have good music. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. No. No. Come on. Guys, I'm a professional, okay? It would be fun if we just started. Okay, first of all, I have a 9-month-old, so I don't listen to normal music anymore. If it was for me, you would be hearing lullabies, okay? So anyway, like with the default components for Android and web, you can actually make everything that you want it to be used. When it is ready, you can make it happen. And for the usage, it is quite straightforward. For Android, if you're going to be using app bundles, you can also build this setup as well. That will help you out to lower the APK size, and as well as you can, instead of using multiple feature flags and so on, you would be actually creating the APK for the region and for the people that you want. All right, so we have seen this like really basic app. We just need to keep in mind a couple of things. First of all, I was using VS Code. No one realized I went to the IntelliJ, so thank you. I will give you a special sticker. So the first thing is, everything that I have is, you can think those as local libraries. They are not something magic, they are not something complicated. So whatever you would do for building a library, you would do it this way. One thing that I don't like about PubDev is, okay, not just one thing, but this is something that I don't like. There are multiple things. You can't host private libraries like you would do with other package managers, So that is one of the problems that I see. So when you have these, you need to manage this by yourselves. What can you do with this? Since it is turned out to be we are moving away from monolith and going into multiple repositories in one place. What I would do is, I would suggest to use Melos. This is like a quite, this is from Immertaste. It is also quite known by the community. If you build applications with it, you can see it in Flutterfire and so on. What it does is, I think, really cool. It is actually creating a YAML file. Again, it is actually expecting you to create a YAML file with the packages, and you can define scripts. So instead of doing Flutter pub-get in multiple places and so on, what it helps you to do is, it helps you to centralize things. So in case you want to run the test, what you would do is, for example, if I say Melos exec test, whoa, why does it fail? So, it's gonna fail. Let's see. Okay, so let me run the test first, by hand. Do I need to bootstrap? I think I need to bootstrap, maybe. I don't know. Let's see really quickly. Okay, tests are okay, but with the Melos, it helps you out to build up this Melos information for you. One thing that, let's see, Melos bootstrap. So it's successfully bootstrapped. Melos exec test. Sorry? Yeah, the thing is, for the scripts, we enter your choice. I mean, I want to run it all. It's the default. No, okay. Thank you. You earned yourself a second sticker. And that, it literally has my name on it, so it's really special. Anyway, so Melos helps you out with the centralization of the things, meaning that you can have CI/CD pipelines running all of your tests from a single source, single point of view. So you don't need to juggle things around. You don't need to go to, like, CD, run this, leave, CD, run this, leave, like let it do all the work. I mean, of course, you're not going to do it that way as well, but it will help you out to run everything easily. Okay, so back to my slides. So we have seen the app in the, like, I want to keep it again like simple because I wanted to give you an example of something that can start you off with. But as I said, I'm not leaving you with any, like, I'm not leaving you with any feedback. First, we will see some pros and cons of it. Then I will answer some questions, and we will have time to also get your questions as well. I just need to be mindful about my time. First of all, the pros, the reusability. As you saw with the post, I can use it in multiple places. The ownership can be clear, especially if you work with the cross-functional teams. You can define the ownership for each team and they can work on it itself. So that's really cool. Testability is something I really, really like. I don't know how, do you like writing tests? Why don't you love it? No, I had this discussion for 10 years, so I don't have energy now. But like, at the end of it, I love it. I love the testability. It brings out a lot of safety net for the long run in the bigger applications. And then encapsulation, it is its own environment, so you don't need to mess with other things and try to make one feature work with tweaking things on the other side. Everything that you would know, you would have you would have a better expectation management. And lastly, you have the deferred components that I talked about. Like, you will have selective download mechanism for the libraries and the UI that you have. The cons. You can have two complex modules super easily because working with the team, you need to have rules. The second thing is also bringing out the rules perspective. You can have big modules. All of a sudden, a feature module can turn into an app. You need to have strict rules. Otherwise, your payment module can turn into a payment app, and no one wants that. Always try to keep it as small as possible, but not too small. If you have a user module, do not let it just log in. Do the user operations, but keep it as segregated as possible. Another problem that I've seen all the time is library version conflicts. I'm sure you all have it if you built with Flutter app. If you have built any Flutter apps, there are sometimes you try to bring in a library and it says, oh, okay, HTTP 1.12 is used with this, so I can't bring it out. And it happens with this as well. The good thing about this is you will be on the driver's seat to control things. I will just give you a few tips in the next couple of slides. And possible navigation problems. When you have multiple modules, Go Router is not your friend. Either you will build out your own routing system, or you can use the auto router, for example, that helps you out to call an external library. In this case, it's local, but it's the external library to navigate to it. Okay, so frequently asked questions. I love Canva, it's really nice. I cannot come up with these amazing designs. Anyway, the first question. What are the first steps to transition an existing Flutter project to a modular architecture? This also goes for any other app that you have. I did this twice in my career, one with a Flutter app, one with an Android one. And what we did was we sat down for like a day or two and define the logical boundaries of the features that we have. What affects others? What can be an app or a library itself that can be used in multiple places? Then the second thing is you need to create separate modules for distinct features and functionalities. Do not be afraid to drop down things or split up things. As I said, just be mindful about what your boundaries are and follow it. And gradually refactor your code base, meaning that start with the simple one, go to the complicated one. And I'm sorry, but write tests. How do you manage dependencies between different modules to ensure they remain decoupled and maintainable? This is the basic definition also for me, the dependency injection. Whatever you use as dependency injection, some people use injectable, but I would go with a simple service locator like Getit. It's from Thomas Burkhardt. I think he's not here this year, but I mean, he has been with Flutter for forever. But yeah, you can use this one. It helps you out. It is pure Dart, so whatever you land it to be, it will help you out to do the dependency injection faster. How do you handle the possible version conflicts between the libraries used in the modules? Basically, you need to, in my opinion, you need to decide on the version strategy. What do I mean by this? You need to decide on the library versions that you want and stick to it. You don't need to use this, I don't know how it's called in English, like this sign in the beginning to have the minor updates, because sometimes people do not understand the semantic versioning. They actually make major updates with minor updates, and all of a sudden your build system is broken and you don't know what's going on. And we don't want this. You can remove that, and again, be in the driver's seat, use fixed versions, carry on, and do constant updates with the libraries that you already know. And how do you handle routing and navigation in a Modular Flutter application, especially when different modules have their own navigation requirements? Because I've shown you the plugin, the package perspective, but we can have plugins for libraries with UI as well. Libraries like AutoRoute, like I said, are really helpful for you. And also you can build up your own system as well. At the end of the day, AutoRoute is not magic. It is still using the routing mechanism that we have. Also, the routing mechanisms can be reactive, so you can build up a reactive system as well, depending on the app that you have. So what are the most common use cases for using modular architecture? I work, for example, in a football application and e-commerce back in the days when we did the modular applications. And both of them had multiple teams, were doing multiple features at once. So we used it in this case. So a team where different teams handle features like product listing, user authentication, payment, whatever you have. It is really helpful to go with this, because these are highly complicated task itself. Because when you start off your application, you have the authentication, you bring in the user and so on. But as your app grows, your relationship with the app and its features will grow as well. And the million-dollar question, should I use it with my project? And I love this answer. It depends. Okay, first of all, whatever you do with like feature first, layer first, mono repo approach, it's not bad, it's not wrong. If you don't need it, do not, like in Turkish we say, do not hold the ear like this, hold the ear like this. No need to overcomplicate things for your teammates. However, when the apps get bigger, when the decisions needed to be made more faster and so on without depending on the others, then the modular architecture is actually helping you out with this cross-functional team approach that you might have, that everyone can focus on one thing and make their decisions without impacting the others. So at the end of the day, I would suggest that if your application is not super complicated, overly featured, go with whatever you have, because at the end of the day, modular architecture is a developer experience approach, not something that would cut off your build times and so on. It's not Android, Flutter is already fast. So that is why you will be the decision maker. But what I would say is, if you have something like mid-range and so on, do not look for adventure. If you want to try this out, try it at home at your own safety, but just be sure that you're not breaking anything. That being said, thank you very much for listening to me. I really appreciate you being here. Honestly, last night I was awake from 3 to 6 with a crying baby on my shoulder, and I was even thinking to cancel the talk, but seeing all the turnout here, I hope it was good for you too. So one more time, thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, I'm here for you.